One of the most disappointing things for me is the fact that most of the Straw Hats don't have basic armament or observation haki. But maybe that's just simply not the path Oda is going to pursue when it comes to their strength, and instead he's going to have them go down a different path with Devil Fruit Awakening. So in this video, we're going to talk about how the Straw Hats will awaken their Devil Fruits, what those powers could look like, and just how strong the Straw Hats could be with Devil Fruit Awakening. But first off, if you are not already, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can join our King Pirates crew. If you have a good time watching this video, please drop a like for the YouTube algorithm. Alright, but let's start off our discussion with Robin, who's the person I've probably been most intrigued with when it comes to power, because I really feel like she's so severely underutilized. Not only just because the potential of her power, but even in terms of portrayal. I still remember when she first joined the crew after Alabasta, it really felt like we got another monster on the crew. But ever since then, all she's really done is had one fight with that big dude from Skypiea, so it's really felt like Oda kinda nerfed her, which is frustrating because her Devil Fruit powers are so incredibly unique and versatile. As we know, Robin ate the Hana no Mi, the Sprout Fruit. It's a Paramecia Devil Fruit that allows her to sprout any body parts pretty much anywhere that she's able to see, which based off the explanation you might not think is that strong, but as Robin has shown throughout the story, it's an incredibly versatile Devil Fruit. With her power, she's really able to create advantageous situations for herself. One of the best examples is how she completely counters speed, where we not only saw this with Pell but also Hakuba. Speed doesn't really mean much to Robin because she could just sprout her own limbs on your own body, completely countering that speed. And then even damage wise, there's two ways you can go about it, whether that's using your limbs tactically and just breaking people's necks, or just straight up generating a whole bunch of them, creating giant ass hands and legs. And as we've seen with Robin's growth post time skip, as you get stronger, you get to generate more limbs. So honestly, I really think Robin has an incredibly strong Devil Fruit, and she's definitely already a lot stronger than we think and just hasn't had a chance to show it off. But what makes things even more exciting is the potential of Awakening and how she can take her powers to another level. And what's good about Robin's Devil Fruit is that it is a Paramecia, which we probably have the most information on in terms of how Devil Fruit Awakenings work. As Doflamingo and Katakuri have both showcased, awakening a Paramecia Devil Fruit essentially allows you to apply your powers to your surroundings. And not only does that apply to the environment, but just objects in general. So I think the basic explanation for Paramecia Devil Fruit Awakenings right now is that you could apply those powers to other things beyond yourself. But when you take that idea and apply it to Robin, it's kind of interesting because she's kind of already doing that. She's already able to just sprout her limbs anywhere that she can see. So it almost feels like that explanation just doesn't apply to her. And for a long time, I kind of just took that belief and just completely ignored the explanation. And instead, as you'll see with some of my previous videos, I'll be talking about things like Robin just becoming a giant or creating a bunch more clones, which is really more expanding her current powers as opposed to what Devil Fruit Awakening actually is. So I really want to bring that focus back on the explanation that we already know, because Robin applying her powers to other things doesn't mean she's gonna sprout herself elsewhere. She's already doing that. Instead, I think Devil Fruit Awakening could allow Robin to sprout other items. Like the ability of the Hana no Mi is the ability to sprout yourself to other places. So if you take that power and apply it to something like a sword, you should be able to do the same thing with that sword. And if that's the case, I think that drastically changes things for Robin's powers because she doesn't have to only rely on herself. Imagine instead of sprouting an arm and slapping somebody, she just sprouts a sword and stabs them. I know that's a really brutal image, but it kind of works very well with Robin. Despite her elegance and the fact that all her attacks are like flower related, the attacks themselves have always been quite brutal, like snapping people's necks. So if Robin all of a sudden gets the ability to use other weapons and items to her advantage, I think she absolutely will. Now of course, how much she's really able to take advantage will depend on her surroundings, but if Eustace Kid has relied on metal this whole time, I'm pretty sure Robin's gonna be fine. But yeah, I really love this idea for Robin because I think it fixes some of her biggest weaknesses, because right now, really her only weakness is that she has to rely on her own body, which means that damage wise she might not deal as much because she doesn't have haki, but if she's all of a sudden able to use other objects to her advantage, she could definitely generate more power. One of the first things that came to my mind was Doctor Strange and how they could generate those teleportation circles, and essentially Robin could do that and just summon a bunch of different objects but just has to cross her arms. And this also would really help her in terms of defense as well, because if she's able to apply her powers to things beyond herself, she should be able to do it to other people as well. So like if somebody launches an attack, she might be able to just straight up sprout them elsewhere, or maybe she can even just straight up focus the power on the attack and send it right back to the user. So honestly, the potential of Robin's Devil Fruit Awakening has become much more exciting for me, because if she's able to awaken her powers in this way, she gets rid of some of her biggest weaknesses, and I think overall the power just suits her very well as a tactical, intelligent person. Also, just by awakening her Devil Fruit should make her power stronger, so she might be able to do some of those other things as well, like making herself bigger or generating more clones. And honestly, even though I still really want to see Robin get hot haki, which if you're caught up to the manga I talked about in this video, but I am starting to think that Devil Fruit Awakening. Alright, but next up we have Chopper, who's a very interesting one because a lot of people think that he might already be awakened. Many people believe that Monster Point is actually Chopper's Devil Fruit Awakening, which he forcibly did by using a Rumple Ball. And the reason a lot of people believe this is because we have also already seen what Zoan Devil Fruit Awakenings look like. And that's because the first Devil Fruit Awakenings that we saw in the story were the Jailer Beast back in Impel Down. Crocodile was the one that gave the information that they were awakened, and he pretty much explained that the awakening helped them become more durable, faster, and stronger. And if we compare that to Monster Point, that's kind of what it does for Chopper as well. So I absolutely get the reasoning why a lot of people believe this, but personally I've always been pretty strongly against this idea for multiple reasons. And the first reason might be a more personal one, but I want to see more from Monster Point. Especially with the way it is right now, Chopper might have full control, but it doesn't have the same devastating feel as it did pre-time skip. And even though the current Monster Point is very strong, I still think it has to be more. I'll expand on that point more later, but another reason I don't think Monster Point is Chopper's Devil Fruit Awakening is because I'm skeptical that the Jailer Beasts are actually truly awakened. Because although they were pretty strong and definitely stronger than your average Zone users, they still didn't really seem impressive enough, and they also felt like they had no control. I think one important thing to remember is that those guys were supposed to be human, but the whole time that we saw them, it didn't even seem like they could communicate. So personally, I'm very skeptical that those were actually truly awakened Zoans, especially when we know you can increase the power of your Zone Devil Fruit through science because Chopper did it. And while Chopper is a great doctor and he's done a lot of research on this, I gotta believe that Dr. Vegapunk is at least able to do something similar. So even when it comes to the Jailer Beast, I think that's an artificial awakening, but at the end of the day, the main thing it comes down to for me is that even if Monster Point is Chopper's Devil Fruit Awakening, it's still artificial. If he's gonna actually awaken his Devil Fruit, that's something he really needs to do himself. And we've actually kind of seen that with Chopper's growth post time skip, where he's able to change into different forms just with his own power. And as a result, those forms have grown stronger. Guard Point's much bigger, he's a lot stronger in Heavy Point. Physically, the forms look a lot more human as well. The only form that really didn't change is Monster Point, which is the only one he still uses a Rumple Ball for. So even if Monster Point is Chopper's Devil Fruit Awakening, I think if he goes into that form himself, that form will look different and will be stronger. Now as far as what it's gonna look like, my personal headcanon is that it's a much smaller form, and instead of being this big giant terrifying being, Chopper looks a lot more human, but still has some of those animalistic features. Because one thing I've always thought about is that Chopper ate the human fruit, and Monster Point definitely does not look like a human. So appearance wise, my personal bias makes me want to see it become more human-like, but honestly, as long as it becomes more menacing and makes Chopper stronger, I'm fine with that. Like I mentioned, even the current Monster Point is very strong, fast, and durable, but I still think it can elevate even further in terms of those attributes. And the last point I really want to make on the physical change is that, do we really believe that Oda's not going to introduce a new form? Like, this is Oda that we're talking about, that loves designing new characters. Sometimes he just can't help himself. And when Monster Point was first introduced, it was such a badass, shocking moment, and I think generating that excitement is part of the reason Oda loves designing new forms and characters. So do we really think that if Chopper has a Devil Fruit Awakening, it just turns out to be Monster Point and it's no different? I personally don't think so, so I think when Chopper finally awakens his Devil Fruit, there will be a brand new form that's much more menacing and powerful. But with that said, let's move on to Brook, who's probably the most unique case within the Straw Hats, because even though Brook has a paramecia, it's one of those super unique, one-of-a-kind Devil Fruits. Like literally for a lot of Brook's life, that Devil Fruit did nothing for him. But instead, when he died, it brought him back to life and is now introducing a whole bunch of other unique abilities relating to the soul. So with Brook's fruit, it's gonna be incredibly hard to figure out, but that's kind of what makes it fun. This is the one where we could kind of go crazy with it because it's really hard to guess. And I definitely want to hear you guys' thoughts and theories on this, so make sure you comment below. But yeah, when it comes to Brook's Devil Fruit Awakening, I've done a video on it previously as well. And the main idea I pushed in that video was Brook essentially becoming a necromancer. And to be honest with you guys, there wasn't that much logic behind that thought process. I just thought it would be really cool. I guess part of the thing that really played into it is because we're in Wano, which not only has Brook really played into this like yokai character, but also death is a pretty big theme within Wano. And I thought it'd be interesting if Brook could somehow bring back some ghosts just temporarily. Also, Brook saying something badass like a rise, like he was in Solo Leveling, would be epic. But yeah, like I mentioned, when it came to that theory, that was more just fun headcanon. So once again, let's actually just try to apply it to the explanation that we know, which is the ability to apply your power beyond yourself. And with Brook, this is kind of hard to figure out, because if you're thinking about him applying his power to like other people, it just gives him an extra life. So applying the basic power of the fruit, I don't really think it's gonna do anything. Instead, I think Brook's Devil Fruit Awakening has to tie into the soul powers that he's showing off. But another thing to remember when it comes to that is that Brook doesn't have the soul fruit. That's Big Mom's fruit. So at the same time, we can't really lean to the soul power that much either. So we really have to focus on what what Brook is able to do with his soul powers. And I think based off of what we've seen, at the core of it, Brook's power is being able to control his soul to the point where he can literally leave his body, or if he gets decapitated, put his body back together. So I think if he takes that power and applies it elsewhere, it won't be him like ripping souls out of people like Big Mom, but instead more so just like messing up that body to soul connection. Because Brook doesn't know Haki, maybe this is one way he could do more damage. Like maybe somehow he can straight up bypass the physical body and just damage the soul. And then once again, I don't know why I'm thinking about Doctor Strange so much, but the thought of like Brook making people astral project and knocking their soul out of their body, I think that would be pretty cool. And in a way that kind of still makes sense with his power because he's able to do that. Now, as far as how he's gonna impact the environment, honestly, I don't have a good guess. I guess maybe he can like kind of revive things and bring things back to life, but that would be pretty OP. Another element I thought about is like the freezing power that he has, but that's also just connected to his soul, which is like generating power from the underworld. So I guess maybe he could kind of incorporate that energy into the ground and other stuff. But honestly, I don't really have a good guess on this, and that's kind of exciting because I think Oda's gonna have a lot of fun creating this one. But moving on to our last one, we have Luffy, and this one I'm not gonna spend a ton of time on, and that's because I just did a whole video on it recently. If you're caught up to the manga, you can check it out right here. But if you're not yet caught up to the manga, I'll give my TLDR. And for this one, I have a very basic take in that I believe Luffy will create a rubber world. Just like how Katakuri and Doflamingo were able to affect the environment, I think Luffy will also do. Not only does it make perfect sense because he's also a paramecia, but also story-wise, people have pointed out that it perfectly counters Blackbeard's Quake Fruit. And I do think people are sleeping on the ability's potential. With that power, Luffy's gonna have full control of the battleground, so he can really bounce people around to his advantage. And using that momentum, he could really create some deadly combinations. One thing I've always compared it to are like the ropes in like a WWE match, but now Luffy can essentially just turn anything into those bouncy ropes. Obviously, I think there will be even more powers to his awakening and Luffy will get more creative, but I think at the very least, we are absolutely seeing Luffy make a rubber world. This recording was really long, so let's just play rock, paper, scissors. If you lose, you have to like, subscribe, and watch this video. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. I have to go back to my reliable rock.